My name is Clay Tumey, and I am an ambassador for Enneagram Prison Project. As we approach our 10th anniversary, we thought it'd be fun to sit down and have a chat with all the people who've had a major impact along the way with EPP. We upload new episodes on the 12th of every month, so if you're wondering why you're hearing from us today, here on the 30th, well, today is Giving Tuesday. Giving Tuesday is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving here in the States, and it is a global generosity movement unleashing the power of people and organizations to transform their communities and the world. Thanks to the generosity of a donor just like you, on Giving Tuesday, EPP is doubling the impact of every donation, dollar for dollar, up to $100,000. Funds will support EPP's ability to expand our programming, including piloting our 8-module curriculum with those experiencing incarceration at facilities and in regions that are new to us. For more information and to make a gift, check us out online at EnneagramPrisonProject.org. On today's episode, I speak with Robin Grant and Dr. Heather Greenwald. Robin is a graphic designer and an EPP guide. You might also know Robin from the many mentions here on the podcast. He is the person that I hand off these recordings to each month just to make sure that everything is nice and clean and appropriate and ready for the listening audience. Dr. G, as many of us ambassadors call her, is the chief of mental health at a maximum security prison. We first met her 3 years ago, I believe, at the IEA conference in Cincinnati. She's quite interesting and also just a lot of fun to sit and chat with. I hope you enjoyed today's bonus episode of the Enneagram Prison Project podcast. This is a little surreal because I feel like I give this pre episode, speech to everybody, and I don't always remember what I cut out when I give it to you. And so I'll just tell you the same thing that might be cut out sometimes when I send it to you, is that all this can be deleted. I'm going to send this to the wonderful Robin Grant after we're done, and then he will fix anything that I miss. But yeah, this is really cool. I'm glad you're sitting down with us. And as you know, we've already started. This is how we roll. So tell us who you are, what you are, where we are, anything that you think is relevant, and then we'll just figure out what there is to chat about.
Awesome. Thanks, Clay. This is surreal because I'm usually in the back shop listening to podcasts and loving them. I am Robin Grant. I am a graphic designer working with the Enneagram Prison Project. I'm also a guide, and I've been with the project for it's just been 3 years now. So,
what of those titles, give me some chronology, if what came first and then what did you add next? Because you do a lot. And I know you said like graphic art and all the things, it describes to a certain point, but you do and I think this is an actual, this might be metric, but you do a shit ton of stuff for EPP. What came first? How did you get involved? What is your entry point into that? And then, more recently, I think, is when you became a guide, right?
It is. That's correct. So I started with EPP as a graphic designer, and I have a multimedia design background. I was working in freelance design, and I was not really feeling fulfilled. And I loved the Enneagram, and I was studying the Enneagram on the side, as many of us do. And I had this moment in my life where I said, I really feel like I would be more fulfilled if I was doing design with the Enneagram. I don't know who needs a designer in the world, but I'm here and I want to design with what I'm passionate about. Wouldn't it be great if I woke up in the morning and I could just, work on Enneagram diagrams and work on instructional design around the Enneagram? So I had put that intention out into the universe, and I actually came to the place where the current job that I had was freelancing in design, and I said, I'm going to not continue doing this. And I didn't know where I was going to go, but I was kind of at the end of my journey with that profession as far as freelance.
Yeah.
So, I took a plunge and forked some money out to go to an IEA conference.
Yeah, they're cheap.
They're not cheap. I looked at my budget. I was like, I don't know if I can. And I'm really glad that I did, because I got a chance to meet Susan at the IEA conference.
Do you remember what year that was?
So that would be, I think, 2019. there's a gap year with
Yeah,
COVID,
it
so
messed everything up.
I
It
don't think
messed
so.
everything up.
Yeah.
I was talking to Dr. G earlier, or Heather. We don't remember either what year it was that some of us met. It's 2018, 2019. They all kind of run together, and COVID makes it even harder to remember clearly.
Yeah.
I'm curious about something, and this has, I'm just a nosy question. So feel free to answer or to just tell me mind my own business. But when you talk about leaving the profession as a freelance artist, or at that coming to an end, I think is the phrase that you used. And I know I'm a musician, so I know about being an artist, and I know about trying to pursue an income from that. And there came a point for me where I no longer wanted to pursue that for my own reasons. And I always wonder, is it possible to pursue an art that is also a career, and that you have to look at as a job, quote unquote, but it's also, I mean, you're clearly an artist. Like, you're not just someone who does things well. You're an artist. You do things that are artistic. And I wonder, and again, it's just a nosy question, but is it harder? Did they really start the music? Are we just going to roll with it?
I think we could
We just roll with it. All right, we have a background track now. All right. It's a party at the Olesic house. We didn't say that. We're
We did
actually
put context.
Yeah, of course. Okay, cool. So we're partying, whatever. But the question about art and making a living from it is it hard to do, like, from not necessarily from a technical standpoint of can it be done? I mean, but like mentally, emotionally, what's it like being an artist and trying to turn that into an income, like a revenue stream?
Yeah, good question, and I get that question often, and it's I wasn't always encouraged to pursue an art career. Where I grew up was kind of a rural area that didn't have strong arts influence in programs. But I was drawing ever since I was a toddler. I was drawing on the walls, the basement.
Did you get in trouble for that?
Well, it was the basement, so
Okay,
it was
gotcha.
not too bad. But it was cute, and I think it was fine. But always, art was my escape. Art was my expression. How I expressed myself. I had a hard time as a kid socializing. I was bullied a lot, and so I was very introverted. I'm a type 4. And I spent a lot of time on my imagination and in my creativity. And I honed some skills doing that for sure. I would say, to answer your question, I decided in my life that pursuing a few other professions, like teaching was one of the options. So, like, in certain regions, it's like, well, you could be, government worker or a teacher or a post office worker, or nothing wrong with any of those jobs or professions, but not at the expense of your own personal passion, right? So if that's what you're passionate about, absolutely 100%. But that was not what I was passionate about. I wanted to design. And so I was kind of the starving artist for a while, certainly starting out.
Yeah.
And not knowing how to value myself.
And that's a thing too.
Yeah, it is a real thing. Not knowing how to place value on yourself. So I had to have a part of me that was determined to do the thing that I loved and grow from that. And so I had several years of learning, growing, doing, not making a lot of money, but being happy with what I was, with my craft.
How much of art is influenced by not being happy? Like, if there's a lot of pain in the art that you make, do you risk losing your art when you find some level of happiness?
I think I'm understanding the question. It's like, do you mean like if I'm doing my art in a career that's not fully my passion?
Career, hobby, whatever. If I'm a songwriter and I'm just devastated by life, and as a result of that, this beautiful art comes, and then I meet people who make me happy, and now I'm struggling to write a song.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's as a career or just something I do for fun. Like, have you ever found? And I'm not. It's not a leading question that I'm looking for the specific answer of. It's just a curiosity that popped in my head. Like, if you're, because you said you're 4, and the stereotype for the 4 in my head a lot of times is there's a lot of darkness. There's, and I have a 4 wing too, so there's, not only do I see it in others, but I see it in myself, that darkness is a comfortable place. A lot of times. Yeah. And so if my art comes from that darkness, do I risk losing I don't play music anymore. I stopped doing music around the time I went to prison. And I haven't really done that much since I got out of prison. And I don't really have a desire to, frankly. And I I've never analyzed it to this extent, but I guess there is a little part of me wondering, like, am I too happy to make good art? Is that an absurd question to even ask? So I don't know. I'm saying these words out loud. What do you think when you hear them?
Well, I think it's really a really interesting question because what I'm hearing you saying is like sort of art comes from pain a little bit, and that is true. It does come from pain, but from my experience, there's a life-giving source that comes from making art. So I draw a lot of cartoon, comic-based characters that are inspired around the Enneagram. And that's another sort of side passion that I have. And when I'm in that space and I'm drawing those and creating those, it's just a life force that's flowing through me. It's like I don't sense time. There's a disconnect from a certain kind of reality, and I'm in a flow state. Art making is really a flow state space. So to make a career out of a flow state space, thumbs up on that. I think we should all find a flow state space and make our careers out of it. That's being in the moment, being in that creative space. So sometimes pain, we call it like a sublimation. It's like finding a creative outlet to get our stuff out, right? So we write a song and we put our heart into it and it's amazing, or we'll draw or paint or something and sublimate. But with that also there is some kind of a creative force I think we all have, and we get into those flow states and we can just sense we're transitioning from one kind of a reality to a creative reality that is very soul nourishing space to be in. And so it's the kind of creative space I love to be in. And I have pain sometimes, like everyone, but I don't escape into art to manage that pain.
Gotcha.
I think it's processing pain in a different way in my life now.
Gotcha.
Than before.
Thanks for entertaining that with me, because it's an aside from what I want to talk to you about,
Sure.
but that's part of the joy of the podcast, and this is probably just going to be like a little bonus upload. Like we might not wait till the 12th to include this. So I don't know. I love talking to, like, it's hard. Like I don't see you as someone who is good at drawing. I see you as an artist, and your art manifests itself in visual ways. And
Thank you.
so I wish we had more hours to just sit and hear and me be nosy about that stuff. But coming back to, and then maybe we'll do that down the road sometime. But coming back to where you met Susan at the IEA conference, a couple or a few years ago, we'll just leave it at that. 2018 or 2019, maybe, probably was it the Oakland one?
It was the Cincinnati. I was living in Cincinnati at the time.
So that was, God, I'm not even going to pretend to remember. I was there, and I don't remember what year it was. So you met her. You were looking for someone. You were looking to get into art, specifically with the Enneagram. What was the first conversation like with Susan or with anybody in EPP of saying, hey, I mean, I'm going to paraphrase, but I imagine it went something like, yo, I got skills. You need some art? Or, I don't know why I just totally changed my accent there, because you don't talk like that, but I went to Jersey for some reason, or New York or wherever. I don't know. I'm probably blaspheming all kinds of groups of people right now, but is that how it went? Or was it more like just trying to did you just like dip your toe in the water and just kind of eased in, or how did that go? What was the process?
It was really casual and it was really unexpected. So I was literally crossing the street and I made contact with my good friend Dorothy Haddock, who is Halita Haddock's mom, who I'm good friends with for many years. And Dorothy said, Robin, come meet Susan. And they were talking about me, I think, a little bit with each other. And so Susan kind of had a soft land with kind of knowing a little bit about who I am. So we walked into the conference and it was super. We were just walking side by side. We were like on our way to whatever event we were going to that day.
You and Susan.
Yeah, and and she was so lovely. We just had like a casual, easy conversation. And she said, so she asked me some questions like, so what do you do and what are you about? And I was just sharing from my heart, and I don't remember all the words that I said. Honestly, it was a kind of a brief conversation. But I said, Susan, I'm really passionate about the Enneagram, and I'm an artist, and I want to do this. I want to bring my art passion to the Enneagram world somehow, and I would love to talk to you about what the possibilities could be with working with EPP. And that was kind of the end of it. We had another brief little exchange, and then we parted and went on our way. Yeah, and followed up later.
So she didn't like immediately jump on it, like, oh, we're doing a workbook, we need this, we need that. Did they even have the workbook at that point?
I had a series of conversations with her and Rick, and
you're fine. It's all good. You know the drill. It's Suzanne walks in. Hey, we did your episode already. Okay, you had your time.
Suzanne.
Does this get cut out?
No, we're keeping this in. Suzanne's trip through the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah,
I love it.
that's funny.
I love Suzanne. I had some conversations with Rick and Susan, and they hired me, and I was so thrilled. And I moved from Cincinnati to California and started working with EPP. And I was taking it all in. It was all a new experience for me. I knew of EPP, but I didn't know a lot of the context, and I was learning and meeting ambassadors and meeting the mission. And they had a workbook that they were working with, and I love packaging educational content. Like, that's always been something that I've loved doing. I love making book covers and organizing things with color, and I just love that. So I just saw many opportunities to enhance and bring clarity and color and life to the content. And so it was just delicious. It was yummy stuff for me to stick my teeth into.
I love your adjectives. I love, because it is exactly what it is. And I would never think to describe it that way, but it's absolutely what it is. And so the workbook as it is now, like the art that's in there, that's all you.
Yeah, it's a combination of collaboration. It's not always one person doing something. It's always working with teams and groups. So we have circles at EPP where we come together as teams and groups and we talk to each other about what our ideas are, and I submit concepts and content.
Yeah.
And so art is a bit subjective, and so my preferences for visual representation could be different from others. And so you have to have that conversation to feel into and sense the vibe. And I think I have an intuitive sense, a heart sense. I feel a lot of things when I'm creating. And so I'm kind of in that space when I'm looking at different ways of presenting material. And so definitely just a collaboration effort to bring those pieces together. I
want to know if there's anything that in the artistic side of the workbook, I'm nosy. I think of it. I translate everything to music, so I know what it's like to be in the studio with a band and producers, and I know I have my part, and I'm a drummer or I'm a guitar player, and this is how it should be. And somebody else saying, "Hey, man, that's not. You try this," and I know how feisty it can be in the recording environment. And I wonder if there's any fun stories that. And I know it's a little different with the EPP family. Like we don't throw rocks at each other when we're, or maybe we do. I don't know. But was there anything in that whole process, the creative process around making the workbook, where it was either not smooth sailing for any point, or like, I don't know, give us some dirt, man. Give me anything.
You ask the best, juiciest questions, and I love it. And you and I have some similarities there because you're asking probably from referencing, and I did. The type 4 is the individualist, the artist, the person that, in my type structure, I have to carve out some kind of a unique space for myself to feel valued. And that's an intelligent strategy, and it causes us isolation sometimes because I'm sort of set apart. I set myself apart a little bit from others, and I feel like I have to sort of have all the answers and present like a creative solution that everyone has to buy into in order for me to feel like I'm doing my job, I guess. So there's some of those pieces, that exist in my type. So with EPP, working with sort of creative collaboration, I had to let go of a lot of if I don't get it right, I'm not going to be unvalued for that. So if all of my ideas are not fully realized, that can be okay. So I definitely had some work to do inside of myself where I was feeling like I got to show up and be professional and just slam it out of the park kind of thing. And some of the choices that we went with were not necessarily the ones that I felt were over the top amazing enough. There was a simplicity and a beauty to some of those choices. And they work and they're perfect the way they are. But I didn't feel like I had to kill myself working to create these unique, amazing kinds of pieces. They were already there. It was just a natural orchestration of my creativity when I would rest and relax and just be present to the creative process with a beautiful team of people that were also creating with me. We were doing co-creation. So there's definitely an creative edge. That individualist part of type 4, I didn't understand it. And actually that word wasn't even part of my understanding for 4s. I heard of them as the poetic or the romantic or the artist. But when you put individualist there, I was like, oh, I relate to that.
Yeah.
I have to be my separate own person. that even translated to how I felt like I belonged with EPP, because I remember Susan said to me one time, she said, Robin, I can't wait till you say we instead of you all.
Yeah.
Because when I would talk to them about art and design and things, I'd say, so you might want to try this and you might do that. And I wasn't saying we can do and we are. And so when she invited me to consider that, I was like, I didn't even realize that I did that.
And it's there's a subtle nuance. It's just a tiny little adjustment of language.
Right.
And it matters.
It does.
And we don't always even realize it. We almost never realize it until somebody points it out.
And so lovingly and so sweetly and so invitational. And so I went away from that conversation and I sat with myself and I go, I've done that my whole life and not really realized how I didn't allow myself to belong. I was afraid, maybe. I don't know all the reasons why. I just felt uncomfortable being subsumed in a group. I've always felt like I had to, maybe it was fear of intimacy with folks. Like I wanted some kind of escape hatch to kind of like get too close, but not too close. And what paradoxically happens is when I allow myself to belong, it brings out more of my uniqueness, my creativity, my personal expression, because I have this connection with all kinds of love and support and care. And that's one of the things I can say about EPP is there's a tremendous amount of support and love that's allowed my gifts to really thrive. And when I was isolated more in my creative, there was always a sense of, will they accept what I bring? And is it good enough? And I was always like scared when I would create. This might be like a musician. Will they like my song? Will my music be good enough? And what will the feedback be? And what will that say about my skills or talents and so on? And it's so not that way, working with this amazing group of humans who appreciate so much and have so much love and support. It's a dream come true to be in this space because I can thrive.
I wish I was exposed to that kind of stuff a lot earlier, because a lot of what a lot of people don't know is I as a musician I play several instruments, and as a teenager I was already recording, full songs by myself with no help from anybody because I could play all the instruments that I needed, and there was always like, all the weird. And I say weird because it's just strange to me that people would be so fascinated by it. It's almost like saying you can draw and you can paint. And people are like, "Oh my God, that's crazy!" And to you, it's just like it's just art, You could probably smear paint on your elbows and make art with it. That's because that's just that. I think that's probably close to accurate, more so than inaccurate. So with music, it's the same. But to take it a step farther, or to go deeper, I learned all the instruments because I didn't have that ability to work with other people, and so I didn't have a band. I didn't have a drummer, so I learned drums. I didn't have a bass player, so I learned bass. I didn't have a guitar player, so I learned guitar. I didn't have a singer, so I learned how to record vocals in a way that would mask the fact that I can't really sing that well, or at least that's what I thought, So instead of learning how to deal with people, all the things that you just talked about with EPP and all the healthy aspects of everything, that how we do things.
Nice.
I didn't have that. I was a teenager, so whatever. I cut myself a little slack there. But even as an adult, it's tricky, man. It's tricky, especially with creative stuff. Right. And even all the way up to and including the podcast stuff. Like I have said very clearly from day one, at least I hope it's clear, that the only reason that this happens is, the piece that you were the final piece to the puzzle that makes the podcast happen, because I've always known how to talk. Like I can do this all day. And then like the next step, somebody else can do that. But there was a point where, I didn't want to do certain things to have a podcast possible. I just didn't want to do them. And, Rick does his part, Helita does her part, you do your part, I do my part. And now it's like, it's a creative process, and there's some technical aspects involved and all that stuff. But I hear what you describe with all the workbook and the collaborations that are involved there. And it's actually very similar to what we do, I think, with the podcast. And for me, and I know I've sprinkled in some little thank you Robins here and there, but I promise I am not exaggerating at all when I say that if you weren't here doing your part, it would not happen. It just wouldn't, because I don't want to do, from a technical standpoint, I can do things like I can, but I don't want to, and I don't like to, and I want to do my piece and then hand it off to a teammate, and then they do their piece. And it's not enough that they can do their piece. I need to fully trust and respect them for all that they are able to do. And so again, I'll say that without you being a link in our chain, it just wouldn't happen. And it's with 0% exaggeration that I say that. And so to follow that with a question for the listener, what the hell do you do? What do you do once I give it to you? Just walk us through that process.
That's so sweet, your words too. And I'll follow up with that answer to that question by saying that, just to highlight, one of the things that you shared was about the vulnerability piece. And when we're in a safe, trusted community, and what we're building at EPP is compassionate community. And with compassion and care, we all get to be interdependent with one another, with all of our gifts. So because I allow myself to belong, and you, Clay, allow yourself to belong, and all of us allow ourselves to belong, we lock into the interconnectedness of an organism that is this community that allows all of our gifts to thrive. And that's really an amazing miracle that happens. So there's not competing to try to be seen or witnessed, because we all want to be loved. We all want our gifts to be celebrated. And we want, as little children, we would just want to shine with our authentic selves and be seen and validated and loved, so that we can be the expression of what we're designed to be. And then life happens and we get stuff piled on top of us. And then we don't shine, or don't give ourselves the ability to shine, or can't find a space to do that. So there's a real healing work in EPP that is multifaceted, multidimensional. And you're essential part. I'm an essential part. Everyone's an essential part. And that's what makes this magic beautiful and happening. And I can't do what I do without a Clay, and Clay can't do what he does without a Halita, and Halita can't do what she does without a Susan, and it goes on and it goes on. It's just beautiful.
And there's a Robin in there.
There's a Robin in there. Thank you for helping me belong in there. Yeah. So that's my work too, is to just, Robin, it's okay to say that you're a part of something and you're there and that you matter. And those are not always easy words to say.
An integral part.
Thank you.
Necessary part.
And so to answer your question, I have so education-wise, I have a degree in multimedia communications, and then I have a master's degree in instructional and curriculum design. So I'm an artist that has sort of interests in like all kinds of ways to communicate. I love music. I play piano. I sing in the shower.
I'm pointing at the piano behind me. I didn't know that you played the piano.
I could tickle the keys for a minute, I think. And I've always loved I'm a sensitive person, so there's something about music and art and creativity that really makes my heart sing. And so when I was thinking about the podcast, and I was thinking, what would be like a cool like music that would be like feels like Clay, and it feels like this podcast. And I went through a lot of tracks, just looking at feeling different things, and I waiting for the feeling to come, waiting for like what feels right. And then I heard it and I was like, that's the track, like that's the one. And every time I hear that music, I'm like, I get so like happy in my heart. Me too. Like I'm just like ready to rock. Like what's going to happen in this podcast? Boom, 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 And it's those are gifts, when I can be part of making something happen. So I do film editing. I help with some music design for this podcast, for example, and editing sometimes in the podcast. There are things that I do with like general planning and creating stuff at EPP. We have lots of working circles with lots of projects. So I might be involved in creating an e-blast one day and doing some design for that. And then sometimes there's curriculum design that has to happen, and I need to make diagrams and charts and things. And sometimes those go into videos. And then sometimes we're doing a special presentation to celebrate an ambassador. And so I might be doing a video to help support that and putting graphics in that. And so there's a wide range of projects that come across my desk, and we are growing quickly. And more people are being added to help do design. And there are some really wonderful people that are coming our way to support. And I'm really thrilled to be part of helping us grow in that way. And so it's really exciting to be part of a thriving, vibrant, passionate organization.
It's kind of neat. It's kind of cool. I feel like you have a greater command of language when it comes to describing things. Like I'm gonna steal your word, delicious. I mean, it's not your word, but you haven't like claimed it. But I'm gonna start trying to use that, and I'm looking for places to use things like that. Like give me like 5 adjectives that I could just add to my like my lexicon or whatever you want to call it, my palette, my language palette. Like delicious is definitely going to be one. What are like four more good adjectives that I could use
Good question.
to describe things?
I guess I have to get into my feels. Like, what
Yeah.
does art? Well, food is interesting, right? Because it's like that. I go to food because it's like a consumption thing. It's
Yeah.
this part of like absorbing and connecting to a creative process. So, like yummy or delicious is a natural go to. Gosh, Clay, what can I say? How does art make me feel? Maybe that's an easier
Okay.
place I can find those adjectives. It's enlivening. It's
I put you on the spot. I feel like I succeeded here.
I could edit. I could edit the
This is all staying in.
long,
This is all
long
staying in.
pauses between Robin's searching
Put some
himself.
Jeopardy music in here.
Do 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 do. Yeah.
So we can back burner it and continue it on the next episode.
Well, okay, so you're also an artist. So
Yeah.
you have adjectives too. So it's like, how does music make you feel? Like, what happens inside of you when you are like
Yeah.
in that space?
When I hear the music for the podcast, I get I feel electrified. I feel electrified. I feel like that's not the right word. I feel like I not shocked in a sense of like surprised, but I feel like clear.
Plugged in.
Yeah, like the defibrillator.
defibrillator.
Like it's not a sudden or a flip of a switch. Or it's like like I feel that
Intensity.
Yeah, it's electric but severe and immediate.
Yeah.
And I feel with other types of music make me feel like emotional to a degree that I can't always describe. And a lot of times that's my cheat sheet. That's my cheat to get out of using fancy words, is just saying this affects me to a degree that I'm not able to articulate. And like it sounds fancy to say it that way, but in reality, I'm saying I don't know how the hell to tell you what I'm feeling right now, and that's how strong it is. So, I want to make sure that we're good on time. I told you like 30-ish minutes. You've probably heard me give this speech to people before. Like we're there. I don't know if you can see the stopwatch here. We're 31 minutes. Are you good?
Yeah, man. This is great.
I want to ask you about something else, and then I'm still crossing my fingers that we can get Dr. G up here.
Oh yeah.
If she was sitting on the couch, she'd be like,
She's coming.
yeah. But with something, and it's the last thing that you mentioned in what you do with EPP. You mentioned you're also a guide, and I want to know, first of all, what does that mean? The last two episodes have been about guides.
Sure.
So there's a strong probability that people already know what a guide is. But sometimes people start on the most recent episode, so maybe we have somebody who's brand new. Totally possible. So A, I want to know, what is a guide? And B, why do you care enough? It's not fun. Working in prison, working with the incarcerated, working with people who have that degree of shit in their history, in their personal life, in their past, that amount of trauma, that amount of just junk, and it I will say it's rewarding. I can get down with that. I don't think fun is a word that I would use, and it's I don't even know if it's enjoyable. I can't speak for anybody else, but it's just not something. It's not like you think, like if you said, hey, you want to go to a theme park and ride some roller coasters, right. I'm in. Like that sounds fun. You want to do this other thing, but with this population, with this subject matter, why in the world why are you subjecting yourself to this? And why do you want to be a guide? Why do you care?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a great invitation. Guides are someone who goes into jails and prisons or other spaces and guides people in an invitation to learn the Enneagram and come home to themselves. It's a guiding process. And so we are there to support people on their journey. They're guiding them on their journey. Why am I a guide? And, it's almost like there's difficult sometimes for me to put into words why I'm a guide, because when I was very touched by what the project is doing and my experience of watching people on the inside have a transformative experience, I said, I want what they have going on. And I've been studying the Enneagram, but there was just something compelling about what people were experiencing that I was drawn to. And when I said I wanted to become a guide, I couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth as they were coming out of my mouth, because I'm like, what did you just invite yourself into? What did you just say? And I mean, I went in with my shaking in my boots, actually, to do it. Something inside, all that I can say to you, Clay, is there's something inside that was pulling me towards this. There was something in this, we say we're guiding them. They're our teachers. The ambassadors are the ones, and the people inside are the ones that are the teachers, the wisdom keepers of humanity. It's like the secret wisdom keepers are hidden away in these places to set humanity free. That's how I see it. And so it's a privilege for me to be part of this process, to be part of their lives in any way, because what they're experiencing is a direct impact on my own transformation journey myself. So you could say maybe it's selfish reasons a little bit in that space too, right? But I mean, that's really the substance of what's happening, and that's what's really profound for me. And I'm very touched. We had a dinner tonight, and listening to the ambassadors share their experience of what's touched them. I mean, it's heart opening. It breaks open so many layers that I have in my own life that I hide myself, protect myself, afraid for people to really see who I am, and I witness these human beings with so much vulnerability and so much work and so much heart. I mean, it just blows back all of the layers that I have in my life, and inspires me to grow and deepen my own journey and path. So that's why. Yeah, it's deep heart work, and it's so worth it. And I mean, I will be honest with you, going in and having prison doors slam behind you on any level, there is a certain amount of fear and trepidation one has. And then
it's kind of a primal thing almost.
There is.
It doesn't feel right.
It's like, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And then
What the hell?
yeah, right. It's like, but did you bump your head this morning? But then you move into the space, and you're sitting in the space with human beings who are just like no different from anyone else, wanting to know why we do what we do. I want to know the answer to that question myself. And all of a sudden, we're just human beings being with one another and in a compassionate, safe space to grow together. And it's beautiful, and it's amazing. And I'm really grateful to be part.
We're grateful to have you. I'm grateful that people like you exist in the world, because I don't, and I touched on this a little bit last episode. I'm not a guide, and I don't think that I will be. And it's because I don't have, I've been to prison. I've been locked up. We all know that, or at least I hope we do at this point. I've talked about it enough. I feel like I'm comfortable with going into prison. There are certain things about being a guide that I don't think I've got it, at least yet. I'll cut myself some slack and say I don't have it yet. It's hard to, like this, hearing the door slam, I could deal with that. And all the other things about being on the inside, and I can deal with the pain. I'm comfortable with the conversations that are hard. I really struggle with, and I think it was Suzanne that I was talking about this with before. I struggle with seeing people rather than seeing the crime. So, using myself as an example, I struggle to see Clay for who he is, but it's really easy to see him as a criminal who robbed banks, who stole money from his mom. It's easy to see the crimes. It's easy to see the things, the actions, because it's right in front of me. It's hard to see Clay as a small child who grew up into this thing that he didn't want to be. Mm-hmm. It's hard to see, Vic as this small child who had these things happen in his life that weren't his fault. It's easy to see, oh, you stole that. Oh, you robbed this people. Oh, you sold those drugs. It's easy to see that and be mad at him and judge him for that. It's hard to see past that and into the childhood and know, like, this, he didn't have a fair chance. Mm-hmm. And so I wonder if that was something that just came naturally for you, or is it something that you had to consider at some point and get over it, or has it never even been a thought until it's presented like this and in this conversation? Where were you with that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I have to pause to think about I haven't had the experience yet where someone has told me something that was something that I couldn't process. And I know that some have had that experience. Deciding if I'm going to go down a certain road or not to talk about something.
I'm riding with you.
I want it to be relevant. I can always cut this later.
Yeah.
So maybe, should I go there? So I'll say this. In my history, our family was we had a home invasion in our family. We were held.
We were victimized.
Yes. And so it was a trauma event for sure.
I bet.
And I don't really, I'm sharing it now. I don't share it. I think there's a healing in it for me to be able to see the humanity in this way, and for all of us, when we know that the choices people make are not because people are evil inherently, that people are subjected to painful, difficult, overwhelming circumstances that lead to desperate choices. And that has to be able to contextualize and see how EPP helps to support a person's developmental process, how we all develop, and how we all create our realities based on opportunities or no opportunities, or limited opportunities, or abuse or traumatization that lead to these desperate kinds of acts which come from extreme distortions, from a very understandable place when you know what's going on and you put the puzzle pieces together to see what makes a human being where they are at any level. It allows you to have space to forgive, to heal, to restore one's own heart and soul spaces, right? We all have our own stories of where we are. I had lots of privilege and opportunities that many people don't have. And then I have also challenges that I have to heal myself from in my life today as an adult. So it's a combination, and we're all supporting each other. That's why we need compassionate spaces like EPP to find our a safe space to heal. And it's so interesting that it's, people that most unlikely places and people are the actual puzzle pieces that are missing to put ourselves back together, right? Like, who could think that that's where you go for to do inner work, right? And that's you can't write this stuff. It just happens when our hearts are open and we're searching.
I'm giggling because I just know how bizarre it, going to prison to find myself is just, it's like a weird phrase that I say, but it's accurate for me. And everybody has that equivalent. Not everybody, a lot of people have that equivalent for them. And finding that piece it's a big deal. I want to leave you with the last word. I think you probably know the drill by now with how I end the. We went 40. 40. I mean, this was totally spur of the moment. I see you're peeking at the stopwatch, and so yeah, 42 minutes, and then if you cut something out, that'll probably be less than that. But what if I just send it straight to Rick and he doesn't get to cut anything out?
Scandal.
Yes, it's possible. We can do this. This was totally spur of the moment. We are at the Olesic household. We had an event this evening at their house with about 80, ish people. I don't know what the head count was. That's the number that I heard. And after that, we came inside and we're just shooting the shit. And I asked you earlier, are you down to chat? And you said yes. So this was without any preparation on your part or any time to really think about what you were going to say or talk about. And I know that's not always easy and it's not always fun. And especially for our withdrawn types, it's not always something that we look forward to.
Sign me up.
So I want to express gratitude and say that it's a big deal to me that you sat down with me for a little bit. I enjoyed talking to you. I think you're quite an interesting person, and I hear when you are about to talk, I'm ready to listen. You're in that category for me. So thank you for sitting in front of a mic and letting me hear you talk for a little bit. I want to give you the last word and ask if there's anything that it could be something we talked about or something we did not talk about, anything that you would like to, you have the listener's ear. I'm going to shut up from here on out, and as much time as you want, as many words as you want to say, anything that's on your heart.
Wow. Well, I wanted to say thank you for inviting me to share. I really count it as a privilege, and you're someone I look up to, and I appreciate, and I'm a listener when you speak, so understand that. Also, what you are doing with the podcast, I know, is a beautiful contribution, and it's a big deal, and I'm super excited for you to be doing this work, and I support you 100 million %. And to say, what would I say at the end of this, other than so much gratitude for you, gratitude towards a group of human beings, and Susan being a person who's pioneered a beautiful, amazing, world-changing vision. That I have gratitude for a community of like-minded, like-hearted, compassionate humans that I get to connect to every day, and who is graciously reaching out their arms to the world to say, welcome, you belong, and let's do this. Let's change the world. Let's bring compassion, kindness, and care, and help heal the broken. And I want to be part of that, and I am part of that, and I'm excited.
Thanks for sitting down. I know it's probably a little like anxiety inducing to just sit on a mic and talk when it's, literally just thrown in your lap like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, I don't know which one's better, not knowing that it was coming or knowing, but we're here and I'm ready. We're doing it.
All that could be the part of the episode that introduces where we're going, or Robin may just start it like here. So I don't introduce anybody. I let people introduce themselves. That way I don't say too much or too little. So you tell me who you are and whatever's relevant and whatever you're allowed to say.
Start with the biggest existential question of who are you?
Yeah.
Just easy questions.
Why are we here?
Why are we? Who are you and why are you here?
Why is our planet a sphere?
Oh gosh.
Instead of
Clay.
a cube.
Oh man. Okay, let's
that
see.
mic wants to be your friend. You can
okay.
Even when you're leaning back, you can just pull it up. That's
right.
cool. You'll get used to it, I promise. Yeah, right there.
Okay.
It's great. Your voice sounds great. It's all good.
Let me sit here. I need to go down and in so that we get a real answer. Well, Clay, first I want to say thank you for inviting me to sit here with you. That's the first thing on my mind and heart. You said that you invite people that are interesting and that care about the incarcerated. And thank you for the compliment of interesting. The part I can absolutely validate is the second part, which is that I care about the incarcerated. And I think we're all incarcerated in some way, but the people that live inside jails and prisons and detention facilities and youth authorities and group homes and foster homes and just families where the walls are closing in and the pains are palpable and great. They're in a different kind of excruciating pain. And I care about all of those people very much. That is one aspect of who I am. Very much so, deep in my heart. And I am committed to trying to bring love and care and joy inside those walls so that people can see who they really are and who were they always meant to be and their greatest essence and their own superpowers and what's right about them. So that's a big part of who I am and a big part of what I do.
I love that you, and I've heard others use this, but I love that you use the word superpowers and the gifts that we have. You know, to anybody who knows much about the Enneagram, you know, there's each type, like there's no one type that has nothing, you know, from the other types. And there's no type that lays claim to one thing that nobody else can do. But I do think that I know that we have certain gifts that we're better. And that's not the right word. I'll accept that I'm using, better is not the word, but you know, as a 5, there are things that I can make clear that the next person might not be able to that extent. And I feel like a lot of times it is a bit of a superpower. I like that idea that we all have, and we all have a superpower. So can we, and like I said, I don't introduce anybody. We can go this whole time without saying a name. Is there a name that we can give the people, or should we just go in code? And I'm down with whatever.
I'm not trying to speak in code. Yeah. Which people are we talking about that you want named?
Do you have a name?
Oh, I have a name. Yes. My name is Dr. Heather Greenwald.
Okay.
And I am a chief of mental health in a maximum security prison.
So what's fascinating to me, and there's so many directions that we can go just based on the snippet that you gave us to start with. But the number one place that I want to go is when I've been locked up. You know that, and I think a lot of the listeners know that. I know what it looks like on the inside. I know the kind of people that I encountered when I was locked up. I know the kind of people who worked there where I was. I never met you. I never met people like you. I didn't encounter people like you. I think you're a bit of a unicorn with how much, you know, to hear the emotion and what you talk about at the just off the rip, we're there. And then to find out a few minutes later, holy shit, you work at a correctional facility. Like, this is what you do. I don't think people expect that. So I just don't. And it's not normal. It's not typical. It's not whatever the right word is. It's unicorn-like. So what came first? And I use very informal terms because I didn't get the education that I should have at some point. What came first? The give a shit or the job? Like, how did you find yourself in a position to where you're capable, you're educated, you're the person that they need, but also you care? Like, it matters clearly to you.
It matters so much. Well, first I want to speak to the premise of that statement in that thankfully I'm fortunate enough to know other people like me that work in prison. Thank
you for clarifying that.
But that wasn't your experience. So
it wasn't.
Not clarifying your experience, just mine. And I think, you know, like does find like. And so I do find that there are people who care so much within prison and are trying to bring, I don't want to just say rehabilitation. I want to say, like, trying to bring about the person's best essence that they were always meant to be. And there are people committed to that within. Many of my staff are, and I'm so fortunate to work with a team of people that really care, and many of my colleagues are. So I want to say that thankfully
there's more unicorns.
There's more of us out there.
There's a whole herd of unicorns flying through the sky.
There are. I'm glad to tell you that. But thank you for the compliment. I take that in, and I do feel seen, that you can tell how much I care. And I'm glad that I'm not alone in that. There's programs like Enneagram Prison Project, although I think it's special as well, and we've talked about that. But there are other programs and other volunteers that come in with this heart as well, in addition to the staff. So I'll say that first. Which came first was your question.
You're such a pro. You said so much and then you still remember the question. Like, this is the part where people go, The fuck was I going? What was I supposed to say?
Maybe that's the psychologist part, right?
God, yeah.
Or the 7 tracking multiple threads.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm interrupting to say that was expertly done, and I appreciate it because I kind of forgot what I asked too. Not gonna lie.
Well, thank you, and I'm still on your question. So,
awesome.
So which came first? I think the care is one of the things that did bring me inside prison, and keeping the care, despite the fact that we're all doing time together, and prison is hard for staff and the people that live there, and in different ways, of course. Keeping the care is also a piece of it. So I give a care, I keep a care.
Yeah.
And I think that probably did come first, and it's maintained through working at it and trying to stay present to myself and keep my humanness and keep bringing about humanness in every connection, from a conference call to a committee meeting to a case conference to talking to a human that lives there or works there.
Yeah. I know your type. I don't know if you've said your type yet. Have you? I think
I just said it a second ago, but that's okay.
I think so
you want
too.
Me to say it?
I'm
happy to say it if you want.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
I'm a 7 with an 8 wing 1-to-1.
And what does that mean to somebody who might not know?
Okay, so I'm efficient in a certain habit of being, and my habit of being, the essence of it would be when I'm at my greatest, I'm living joy, spontaneously, with immediacy, but with still great connection to all that is on the outside of me and the inside of me, and with others and this universe. So I can really appreciate the beauty and the joy and the love in this universe. That's kind of my superpower.
I was going to ask, is that your superpower?
That's my superpower.
Okay.
And I think as a 1-to-1, relationship is so important to me. And so I think that gives my joy, not just kind of flitting around the world, which is also a desire of mine, is to just travel and have adventure. That's quite 7. But I'm so rooted to people and my tribe. I care about them so much. That would always bring me home. So that's the 1-to-1 piece.
Gotcha.
And the 8 wing gets things done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you outside earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at the Olesic property. It's not even accurate to say house anymore because it's like a bunch of land too. And we had an event.
Hopefully a future village.
Hopefully, yeah. I think it's likely. And we had tables, and we had a bunch of guests, several dozen guests, maybe 80-ish, upwards towards 100.
So beautiful.
Food, the whole 9 yards in there. Storms rolling in, the weather was getting unfriendly, and a lot of people disappeared to the safety of the home, i.e. me. And and you didn't. You were out there making things happen. And and by making things happen, you were helping clean up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Were you leading the charge, or were you just like waiting for orders?
No, you don't have to lead the charge here, because I think the group acts as an organism of change, and you could see that in the cleanup efforts. I don't know if you were out there long enough to see the full view of it, but the organism does the change, and no one gives anybody orders. Yeah. It's what they call a teal organization, and you could see it in the way we work. No one gave anybody orders.
People just see things that needs to be done, and they do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so no, I just saw what was happening, and I have hands, I have feet. I just started working.
Do you think that it's easier for you as a 7 with an 8 wing to get involved and just your hands work, so you're going to put them to work? Do you think it's easier for your particular type structure, however you want to describe that, to do that, whereas someone like a more withdrawn type, or someone who it helps them to not give orders, because that's not the right word, but like for me, for example, a type 5, I'm more comfortable sitting back, not being an introvert. I don't think that's accurate because I don't feel introverted. I feel like my energy is looking for the appropriate place to be inserted. And so if I see, just to use that example, if I see things are happening and there is a need, you know, elsewhere, or even if I'm just looking after myself, I was uncomfortable and I was cold, I knew I needed to sit down and have some conversations on mic. So I wanted to feel better before I did that. So maybe there's some selfish aspects in there. And then also I kind of sometimes, you know, just don't like doing stuff. So maybe I'm lazy. I don't know. Is part of that. And I'm just trying to paint the picture for, you know, so there's an actual question to be answered. And that question is like, is it easier for a 7 with an 8 wing to help that effort? And as a 5 with a 4 wing, am I at a disadvantage when it comes to being a part of something like that? How does that all work with relation to the Enneagram and types, and when things need to be done, and you know how does all that? What's in your head about all that?
Well, it would be harder for me not to do something than to do it. My growth edge is looking at when not to act, when to be silent, when not to go forward.
Gotcha.
So my natural inclination is to be up and out and to be active and to connect and push forward. And so it would be my work is, when should I not do that? Right? Not, oh,
it's the opposite of mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, it was hard to go pick up tables for me. I didn't even think about, should I go pick up the table or tables? It was, I would have had to think like, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe there's something else I need to be doing. So no, my natural inclination is the exact opposite.
All right, then that answers that question.
And we need all the types.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what do you need my type for then? If in that effort specifically, not just in the world, but like when it's time, like there's a lot of shit to pick up.
Yeah.
And all the 7s and 8s and all the, you know, they're out there doing their thing and they're looking around going, where the hell's my 5? Where the hell's my 4? Where the hell's my this? Where the hell, like, how am I fitting into that puzzle in particular?
You see the mic in front of you?
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Okay, but that's not cleaning up tables, though.
We didn't need you to clean up the table.
Okay, fair
We
enough.
needed you to do a podcast.
Yeah.
That, from what I hear, is making people really think and really feel and really connect. So you were using your superpower the way you were needed.
I'm good at being nosy and asking questions.
Well, I mean, you can call it that, and I think that trivializes the compliment I was giving you, but I think you were doing what you needed to be doing and taking care of you so that you can then put this out in the world was maybe a good thing to do. I'm sure you could challenge yourself to carry a table if ever needed.
I could, yeah. Or if I was hiding from a conversation that I didn't want to have too, by the way. And I appreciate being called out on how I responded to that, because it's hard sometimes to just say thank you. I'll admit that. It's because you are giving me a compliment there.
You want to go back? We could do it again.
We can, yeah. Let's go out.
There you go.
Yeah,
Rewind.
we can delete that like it never happened, but Robin won't let that. He'll leave it in there. He's not going to delete it. So what's my job out there? What's my role? What am I doing? We're going back to the thing.
No, I was just going to let you take the compliment. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I fully expect Robin to leave this in. So
he will.
You go ahead and just take in the compliment.
It feels good. Thank you. And it does. It's nice to have something that feels so natural to me and very little effort. Like this, I enjoy this so much. This is so energizing. And it's like sitting down and having a good meal. I have no effort in eating something that I like. And it
no effort there for me
either.
It
just
We're in
makes
accord
me happy.
there.
Yeah. So that's what this is, but like for my brain.
I totally get that. We have a chord there.
Yeah. And for those who might not know, 7s are it's in the head triad as well. So we do share a lot there.
Can I also tell you something else that I need your type for?
Sure.
So the 7, as I grow and deepen and go down and in, my growth arrow is toward the 5, as you know. And so as I grow up I'm becoming more like your best parts, Clay. And I love my 5 arrow. And I think I've had a lot of 5 my whole life. I think it helped me, through graduate school and the learning process. I'm very, very head-centered, and I've had to grow into my body and grow into the access to my heart. Because the head part, like we've talked about, what comes easiest, I could live in my head without remembering I even have a body.
Yeah. I feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful to have this body and have a healthy body, and I want to be grateful and connected to my body, but I can really forget that I have one, because I can live up here so beautifully and mentalize every feeling and think I've felt, but I haven't.
And for me, sometimes it's just straight up neglect to my body. Like who needs sleep? I can stay up and think. I've actually, before I knew the Enneagram, that was one of my favorite things to say. It's like, sleep is for people who don't have imaginations
or don't read.
Yeah. Or, who run out of things run out of things to think about or whatever. I have more I want to talk to you about, but I told you 20. I just want to check in and feel we're 22 minutes in, and I want to see how you feel, if we're good to keep going.
I could talk and listen to you forever.
Okay, cool. Well, forever is a possibility. I have a lot of space on my computer here. So, do you feel good?
I feel fine. Go at your own pace. I feel good.
This is fun.
It's a pleasure speaking with you. It really is.
Likewise. It's quite a pleasure speaking with you as well. I have so many things I want to talk about. One, I want to go back to one of the first things. It's actually just a little phrase that you mentioned earlier in your first comment, and talking about all the different populations that are relevant and that matter to you. The incarcerated, the foster care system, all that. And you mentioned youth, and specifically youth who are, and I don't know the phrase in California, but in Texas, it's basically prison for kids. It's the TYC, the Texas Youth. They probably changed it recently. Actually, I don't know the name now, but it's juvenile. Kids go and do things that are against the law, and then they're in. And it's nothing that we've talked about on the podcast yet, and it's something that bothers me deeply, and it's just never come up. So I'm wondering if I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about why it's so disturbing to me, the idea of incarcerating children, even though they've committed crimes. I'm wondering what you might have to say to somebody like me who thinks that it's wrong, but I also acknowledge that crime is something that we can't just ignore. If a 14-year-old shoots and kills someone, you can't just say, okay, don't do that. But I also think that the place we send that 14-year-old is not good. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think that life is going to be bad for them from that point forward is how I feel about it. So what do you know about that world, about that population, in terms of, anything that you could shine light on for someone like me who, I didn't go to prison until I was an adult. I wasn't even a young adult. I was already in my late 20s, which in prison, it's not young. I was already almost old school at that point, rolling up on 30. So I don't know. I've only spoken in juveniles. I've never known anybody who was locked up. What is it about our youth corrections that is right? What is it that's wrong? How can we do better? What can we be aware of? There's a lot of ignorance out here in the free world around the whole topic. And I feel like you know a lot that you could share on that.
There was a lot there to unpack.
Yeah.
I guess what I'd like to say to that is, what do you find helps people grow?
I will say that I'm not comfortable with the general what helps people, and I can say with the specific what helps me. And I was just talking about this earlier. Is for me, the question that they asked me was, would it helped me if I learned the Enneagram as a teenager? And so the answer to that question is kind of the same as the answer to this question. And to me, the thing that would have helped me grow was that if someone saw me instead of my actions. And I never struggled academically. I was not a problem child when it came to teaching me how to do things. I learned very easily. I learned very quickly to the extent that I was bored. And I only cared about making life interesting. And as a child, that came out as I didn't follow the rules because I wanted to test the rules. I wanted to, you know, the grown adults in my classroom who we called teachers, I wanted to test them instead of them testing me. And so I never felt like they ever saw me as that. I felt like I was just a problem child. Stop talking, do your work, all these things. That didn't work with me. Punishment didn't work with me. Going to the principal's office to get paddled didn't work for me. I was immune to all that. As far as actually growing, what would have really helped me to grow as a child, this is the same now as a 42-year-old man. When people see me for who I am instead of for what I do, that helps me, first of all, connect with them. And then I immediately care about them because I feel that there's a mutual care about me. And I don't know why that matters. I just know that it does. And so what helps me to grow is when people stop shitting on me for the bad things that I've done. And when they just say, hey, Clay actually ... and then they talk about what they see in me. So at the point where that happened in prison, that's where things started to make a little more sense because, you know, meeting Susan, learning the Enneagram, also processes that were not related to the Enneagram, but just similar things of people seeing me instead of what I've done. That flipped a switch, and I realized, like, hey, I am a person who is a thing, not a thing that is happening in the world or whatever. So I guess the short answer is what helps me grow is when someone sees me, not being a bank robber, not being an absent father, not being a problem child. And it could be good things too. I don't like to be seen as a musician sometimes. I don't want to be seen as a funny person sometimes, or an athlete, or a podcaster, or a speaker, or whatever. Like, it's fun sometimes to just be seen for who I am. And everybody sees something different. Like, you might see something that's not seen by other people. And it matters to me, and it makes me feel like I matter to them. And then the give a shit is engaged, and then I seek the way, or one of the ways that I can grow. And a lot of times that comes out in a question like, what if you see this, you know, how can I be, if it's good, how can I be more of that? If it's bad or not good, however you want to phrase that, how can I shed that? How can I grow into something? And I don't pretend to have the answers. And if I think you have the answers and I feel like you care, I'm going to ask you, like, help. I'm down for the conversation. So it's a lot of words to just say, I just want people to see me. I just want to be seen as a person rather than a person who does things, or a ... with an ER on the end of it, you know, because I do whatever. So that's how I feel like I would, that's what growth, that's how I feel with that question. I don't know. What do you think? What are you hearing? Because I'm in this now. I'm in the analyzing phase of like of everything about the question, because I can tell you clearly, for years there was no growth. It was just, I'm doing life how I want to do it. If you don't like it, it's not my problem. Don't care. And you know, that changed when I became a father. And then it was a tailspin trying to figure out how to not do it. And I didn't know how. So, I don't know. There's a few years of struggling to be seen, not even knowing that I wanted to be seen. And when that started to happen, the good started to happen. And I feel like there was a lot of growth, has been, and hopefully will be continuing in the future. So, I don't know. What What about you?
Well, I love what you said. And I think we could comfortably say people want to be seen, want to be heard, want to be understood, want to be mirrored for their best essential qualities. Because like you said, when you're seen for your best inside, it makes you want to be more of that. And we do connect with people that mirror our best selves back. We see ourselves in that. I certainly do. And I think we can generalize to that, because that's a human need. As a species, we are born into at least a dyad by our biology, and we cannot survive without one another. We can't. As a human infant, we do not survive in the wild on our own. So we know by definition we need each other. We end up getting hurt interpersonally, and we heal interpersonally. And we need mirroring. I certainly need it as a human, and I think we can comfortably generalize to that. And we need that mirroring of our best selves. We get a lot of reflection on what we're doing wrong and what's wrong with us. And there's not enough reflection to children all the way through adulthood of what's right about us. And as we know, the Enneagram does a beautiful job in the right hands of showing us what's right about us, so we can lean into that and connect with people about it and get inside of ourselves and then get outside of ourselves with someone else as a compassionate witness. And in that nexus, in that connection, I think that's where we heal. So my reform bill is, let's do that. And let's do that as many places as we can. And it's a piece, and it's foundational. And then there's lots of other stuff that goes on top of it. And it begins before a child's even born.
I've never thought about this before. The way that you describe how we need each other. I've heard many people say we need each other. We're social beings. We're this, that, and I accept that, by the way. I've never heard it described at birth, where like an infant by itself will literally die.
That's correct.
And there's a point, if, baby born today, it'll die if it doesn't have somebody taking care of it for X amount of time. But at the end of X, there becomes a point where they can stay alive, but there's other growth that needs to happen that's not just physical staying alive or whatever. And I've never thought about it in that way, and I've never considered that at some point, like, kids might be technically able to stay alive, but they're not getting what they need to grow.
And they'll fail to thrive without the interpersonal connection.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an actual biological response when we're gazing at a child. It's called a foveal glint.
Yeah.
That's literally the name for the sparkle in the eye. When you're mirroring your child or a person you're in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that, in cartoons, how they draw that little star. Yeah. That's the foveal glint. And you're literally mirroring love back at them, radiating love. And without that mirroring, without that connection, children don't thrive. They don't even grow the same. And I don't want to quote the name wrong, so I won't say the name, but there's kind of a naturalistic, we'll call it a study, but it wasn't a study because it was happening during wartime, and because this is going to be a podcast and I don't have the details in my head, I'm going to be very loose about the details.
It's the safest way to not be wrong.
Exactly.
I relate to that.
Yeah. But there was an orphanage, and where babies were being cared for, and the children in the ward, the babies in the ward were dying. And when they would get quite ill, they would put them in this one nurse's care, and then sometimes they would live. And to make a long story short, and we'll be sparing on the details.
She gave a shit.
She held them. She held them.
Yeah.
That was the big magic secret. She held them. And, you know, the Harlow's monkey experience with the cloth monkey versus the wire monkey that fed. There's a whole host of things we could talk about after this podcast.
Yeah, and we will, I guarantee you.
Oh, I can't wait to send you like 15 things right now. But there's a failure to thrive, and the body actually does shut down, and a child won't even develop the same. So that's before we start talking about nutrition and the cortisol levels of the mother, and how stressed she is, and whether she had access to proper nutrition, and whether she got to have, you know, a good night's sleep, or whether she was trying to find a place to live. I mean, before we even get to all those inequities, at birth, if you're not held and you're not nurtured in that way, you're not even going to start out on the same starting line.
Can it be fixed, or can it be repaired, or I mean, if it's, are babies or young people, are they stunted? Is it possible to be, or not? Is it possible? Are they stunted beyond growth down the line? So if you, from 0 to 4, you get what you need, but 4 to 6 you don't, and then from 6 on, things are good again. Is there a way that gap from 4 to 6, is it gone forever? Is hope lost forever? Or can we go back and treat somehow that child that they didn't get what they needed for 2 years? Is it permanent?
Well, I wouldn't be able to make sweeping generalizations since there's so much there. And I also wouldn't presume that we could know all of that at this point with what we do know. But from everything I've read and experienced, I would consider things like a diathesis stress model, right? You have certain predispositions to whatever your genes bring you, whatever situation life has handed you, all of the generational traumas your family has endured, everything's adding to, you got a great hand, you got a not so great hand. That's your diathesis, right? That's the disposition that you're dealt with. And the better the disposition, the more stress you can take. The harder the hand you are dealt, the less stress you can take before you break. But is anybody hopeless? I've seen very few cases that I thought were completely like, wow, I don't quite know what to do there. But can we make inroads with everyone? We have to try. I won't say, is there anyone beyond hope or anything like that? I can't make any mass. I have many thoughts coming up that I wouldn't want to go there. But I would say that I want to be committed to try to get anyone I come in contact with better for the interaction I have with them. And even if that just means having a genuine connection, trying to see the person for who they are, trying to see their best qualities. And sometimes you have to work harder than others to find them. But trying to really do that genuinely. And some people are really hurt and really hurting, so they do a lot of hurt and they do a lot of damage.
I think I don't know, is this a cultural thing? We're so happy with punishment, and happy's not what it actually is, but we're so eager once you see something in the news, this guy did that thing, and a lot of people are immediately comfortable saying, string him up by his toes. Mm-hmm. Screw that guy. He's hopeless. He did this thing. He doesn't deserve to be here anymore. Mm-hmm. And what I hear you saying is, hold on a second. Like, he's not, just doing this for the hell of it. He's not getting a need met. And what if we met the need?
Well, and I think we can all be reactive and reactionary when we're, in our talks before, we've been in circles where we're asked if we're above the line or below the line, and whether you're in a reactive state. And we can all go there when we're hurt, and it's an act of intention. It's a practice. And when you find yourself being reactive, we have to take a deep breath and then put ourselves in a different position. And when people go immediately to retribution and just desserts, they're often making a fundamental attribution error, right? Like if we're driving and we cut someone off, we can say it was in our head. Our immediate reaction is like, oh well, I'm late. I'm in a rush. I didn't mean to, and we don't think we're a bad person because we cut them off. But somebody else cuts us off, and we might say, well, that guy or that girl or whatever. Yeah. You hear people.
Did you get your license in a Cracker Jack box?
Right, and the attribution's different. It's situational for us, but it's trait for them. And I think of that when I hear people talk about people they've never met in circumstances they don't know. And certainly haven't walked a mile in their shoes or in their skin or in their experience. And we feel, or we can feel like, oh, it's trait for them, but it's state for us if we do it. I had to. There was no other choice.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of when I hear people talk like that.
My mom and I were talking this weekend about the podcast and all the people that have been on, and there's some amazing guests that we've had. And one of the comments that she made, and I'm paraphrasing, but she, I may be saying this verbatim, what I heard her say was like, the people are interesting. It's a topic that is relevant and it matters. And, they're fun. Like I find joy in just chit-chatting. And so she, enjoys listening to. But she said, and the people are just so smart. There's just some really smart people in this community. And as I hear you talk, and I agree with her that there are some super bright people on the other end of the house right now as we talk. I hear you talk, and I'm almost envious of, like, you say things like foveal glint, and like, I don't even know, is that an F or a PH? Like, I've never, and I could talk for hours about stuff like that. I find it so fascinating. I think you're an interesting person, and you just know a lot. And so I could go down that rabbit hole for hours, and probably will off mic down the road tonight or some other time.
Yes, I'll be sending you some texts.
Yeah, please do. I also want to know, before we end, your entry point with EPP and why this project is relevant to you, or if it's relevant. And I don't want to just assume that. The purpose of the podcast is to tell the story of who we've become in the last 10 years as we approach our 10th anniversary next year. And so at what point did you come in? What have you seen? What did you see initially? What have you seen since? What does the project mean to you?
So many good things to unpack there. I think your mom's pretty smart too, by the way.
She's all right.
I'm gonna. I loved talking to your mom.
Yeah, you met her
tonight.
this weekend as well.
Oh,
yeah.
I really enjoyed my conversation with her.
She listens to these, by the way. So.
Oh, hey, nice to talk to you again. I thought she sounded really smart too. Yeah. Okay, so what's my connection to EPP? We'll start there. There was a few questions there, but that was one of them. My connection to EPP. So I first read about the Enneagram and learned my type, and then had only a passing kind of, a friend had introduced me to it, and I learned my type, and then I didn't do anything with it. And it was years later that a colleague asked me what my type was, and then handed me Richard Rohr's CDs, and I listened to them on my commute, and all of a sudden the Enneagram mattered to me. It was just the right time for me. And listening to each type on the CDs each day when I was driving to work, all of a sudden it was like a map to everything. And it unfolded how people see me, and gave me really good insight to how annoying and how obnoxious I could be, and gave me new insights to, like, I need to chill with people. I could be a lot. It just like started teaching me in a way I was ready to be taught. And so I was just ready. I was ready for the Enneagram to teach me, and I was ready to be taught. So I picked up the Enneagram, and then I dove right in like a good 7 with full mental gluttony, just reading everything I could.
I love that phrase.
Oh, I'm really good at mental gluttony. Reading everything I could, reading all the books you read when you're beginning, and they were just all so fascinating and amazing. And when I find something good and beautiful in the world, I want to bring it to prison. Anything that's healing to those of us that don't live in those walls, if it's healing to us, it's going to be healing on the inside. And so, as is my natural inclination, after I loved the Enneagram, I wanted to get to bring it to the people that live inside the prison. And I started to try to write like a class on it. And then I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not an Enneagram expert. Somebody's got to have done this before. And I just Googled the words Enneagram and prison, and you know who came up.
Right.
Enneagram Prison Project. Thank goodness they kept the name really on the nose.
Yeah,
that's how it came up.
Like, oh, prison is our middle name. I still say that should be a t-shirt. But yeah.
That would be a really good t-shirt.
Everybody says so, and yet here we are.
You are EPP, so you could make that t-shirt.
You would think so.
Well, you can. You can just make it.
I could. I could just get a Sharpie and write it on this shirt, to be honest. Who's going to stop me? There's Sharpies down there.
Hey, that's your way to lift the table.
Hey, there we go.
There's the table you can go get.
We found it.
Yeah. Get your 8 momentum going. Work the Enneagram process. So I Googled it, and Enneagram Prison Project came up.
What year was this?
Gosh, I don't even know. I was asked that a couple times.
I mean, it's in the last decade.
I'm going to say like 2017, 2018.
Okay. So pretty recently, the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I called EPP, the number on the website, and
people still make phone calls out here in the future.
Yeah, we did. I used this thing called a phone.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well,
Who did you get when they answered? Was it a voicemail or was it an actual person? Hi, you've reached the Enneagram Prison Project.
Voicemail numerous times. And then one day, and I think Susan and I both feel like it's just kind of some sort of universal universe momentum force that occurred. We could say divine intervention, perhaps.
Yeah.
I kept calling, and when the next time I called, I didn't get voicemail. I got Susan Olesic herself. And I think she was a little startled because it somehow had rang to what she calls the bat phone, which is the one that rings directly to her.
Yeah.
And she said, and she's like, it rang the bat phone. I just was caught unawares. And I said, hey, I work in this prison. I identified myself.
Yep.
And I said, I love the Enneagram, and I really, really want you to come do a program here. And I think we were on the phone maybe an hour or two.
Susan doesn't do 10-minute chats.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I mean, I can if we have to, but I don't want to, and neither does she.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with the Enneagram Prison Project, and I could really feel how great EPP is. I could feel it. And she ended up saying, I just kept thinking, are you real?
Yeah.
Are you real?
I can hear it.
And I didn't have that thought because I was just so in love with the whole program and with how substantive she felt and how solid she felt. And I could really feel that. But I have been amazed ever since. I get to now have the, I guess it's she had it first, but now I keep having that feeling like you are real. You are real, and this is really happening. This is amazing stuff. So we had this beautiful talk, and I was just about to leave for a vacation to Europe, and she didn't know that, and she was saying, well, our programs are in, and she started listing the prisons and jails that they were in, and she said, we're in the UK, we're in Belgium, and I was going to the UK and Belgium the following week.
Nice.
So it felt like I'm supposed to go see these programs.
Did you go?
I did. And
No
so
way.
The first Enneagram prison project I saw,
Was on the other side of the world.
that's right, across the pond.
Was it UK or Belgium?
Both. I went to UK first.
Which was first? Okay, UK.
And then I went to Belgium. So
That's I didn't know that, by the way. I might have heard that at some point and didn't store it
yeah.
properly, but I didn't know that.
Jean-Philippe took me to 3 prisons in Belgium.
Jean-Philippe, for those who don't know, is a warden at a prison in Belgium, and
Just the greatest.
absolutely.
Viva drove me from Paris to Belgium.
How long is that? That's a hike, I bet.
I don't know, but I asked her so many questions the
Yeah.
whole ride.
Yeah,
It was beautiful.
that's wild.
Yeah.
Just the way that all lined up, and that, oh, by the way, I'm already planning to go there.
I mean, I was going to be there in a week. And so we did that. And then the next time I saw the Enneagram Prison Project, it was in the prison system where I work.
Okay.
Not at my prison, but at a different one.
Gotcha.
And then it was after that we all got it together to get them in our prison.
And so are we there now?
Yeah, you've been there.
That's
Not you personally,
well,
but
of
EPP.
course. I could come, by the way. Am I invited?
Yes, we just have to get you gate clearance.
Okay. How do they?
We'll talk separately
Okay,
about that
cool.
process.
Well, I'm down, and I know that there's, book clubs and other stuff that we wouldn't even have to be Enneagram related. Like I would love to just. I'm down.
All that.
Yeah.
The offer is extended. We will make that happen.
Does COVID get in the way of that, or are things open back up ish?
It is. It's opening back up now.
Okay.
The world is coming back in.
How long is the process? Like, once I do, like, hey, can I come in? From that point to when I get to go there.
It's hard to generalize. It depends on lots.
You do good at that. You do, like, when there's not like a safe, like, specific answer, you're really good at. Did you do any like law school in your? Because I know you have a very extensive education, right? Anybody with doctor before their name didn't just graduate high school and quit. Was there any? Do you? And it's funny to ask that question that way, but I'm actually curious. Do you learn? Like, are you just really good at this, like talking, or were there actually classes along the way to say, here's how you're to be more awesome at that?
Well, by the way, you're also really awesome at talking.
Thank you.
I think I always loved speech and debate.
Okay.
I was interested in becoming an attorney at first. In high school, I was interested in becoming an attorney, and kept the interest in criminal justice.
Yeah.
But I found myself wanting to know why people did what they did,
Yeah.
more so than wanting to argue a certain point. Plus, I didn't want the strength of my argument to decide whether somebody went to prison or not. Because I feel like I could win a
big
lot of
one.
arguments.
Yeah. So you were drawn to the criminal defense specifically, not just law in general.
Well,
Or either side. You probably could have done the prosecution side too, huh?
Well, when I was in high school, I was on the mock trial team,
Yeah.
and our preceptors, our practicum coaches, I don't know what you'd call them, our coaches, they were from the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
And I was probably more drawn to defense than prosecution. And I was worried as I talked to them, like, well, what if they had gone through this or that? And
Yeah.
then, you argue well and you win your case, in the adversarial process. what if you don't think they should go? And, your job as an attorney would be to argue the case to the best of your ability.
To win.
And, the courts is a whole other subject, and I'm going to leave that alone right now. But it just wasn't the right path for me, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
And the part I wanted to play was, how did they come to be in that position, that day, that night, that moment? And will their worst mistake define them for the rest of their lives?
Yeah.
And can it be undone? Not the hurt they caused, because that is a restorative justice that has to occur for the rest of their life, and some things you can never undo, right?
Agreed.
But does it serve anything for them never to get better? Does that help anybody if they don't ever get better? So that's the long answer is no, I didn't have any law training other than mock trial in high school to answer your question. But, being in correctional psychology or forensic psychology, and I was an expert witness. So that's a kind of oration you have to do when you testify, but as a forensic examiner. So, but even in corrections, there's an intersection of criminal justice and psychology.
That's so fascinating. And I don't know that I would have ever gone down the route anyways, even if I had righted my train early enough. But I'm just fascinated by people who can be that good and that informed and that educated and that just capable in that whole, I don't know, I find it fascinating. I wish I knew that about the mock trial.
You would have been phenomenal.
I would have prepared something for this conversation. Like I would have thrown out a little fake thing. I think I probably, anything, I don't know. I feel like I'm good at bullshitting, is it bad that I think that would have given me an advantage?
Well, I guess the question to ask yourself about that is, how do you define that, right? What is the definition of BSing? Because I think that's where you find the finesse of debate.
I think to me, if I know or if I believe, I don't know, I just picked something random in the room here, the fireplace. It's not a real fireplace. I know enough about it to know that the fire, that's real fire, but it's not actual wood burning, it's gas. And then there's a fan you can turn on to blow hot air. If we were talking about the fire, I feel like I could read your knowledge of this fire and then use your lack of knowledge against you. And I think that's what bullshitting is. Because I'm not trying to sell you something that's not real. I'm trying to manipulate your lack of information. And
a very idiosyncratic definition of bullshit.
I don't know what that means.
It's a unique way to define it. I wouldn't have thought of defining that term that way.
What do you think would be a typical way of defining bullshitting?
I love that this is what we're asking.
Yeah. I told you there's no rules. We can do it.
Fantastic. Well, and because I'm also trying to track all of the questions that we didn't just ask so that I could go back to them if necessary. I'm
Part two.
Okay, we're on this. There's this thread and this thread and this thread and this thread to go back to. Okay, so the question at hand is, how do I define bullshitting?
Yeah.
I think there's I would say the idealized cognitive model of bullshitting, which is the central prototypical, would be that you don't know what you're talking about and you act as if you do.
Gotcha.
That's what I would have said I thought the definition was.
Okay.
That's the idealized cognitive model of it.
That makes sense. I can get down with that too, by the way.
By the way, I'm going to send you that book if you have never read it. George Lakoff.
Sign me up.
It's called Women, Fire, and Dangerous Things, because it's a word that means all those things. Anyway, so I have to tell you this now because I know you're going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
So there's a prototypical definition of something in your head. So think bird.
Okay. There.
Okay. And that bird has certain qualities, traits, aspects in your head, but penguin is a bird, a turkey is a bird. There's lots of different kind of birds, and it goes out in a continuum.
I want you to get to my birds. See how many birds it takes.
Yeah, and it becomes less bird-like
Yeah.
to your prototypical bird.
Ostrich,
In some, yeah.
penguin.
So the idealized cognitive model of bullshit would have been, you don't know what you're talking about, but you spin it like you do.
Fascinating. That's actually probably, if you told me that first instead of asking me, I would have said, yeah, of course, that's bullshit.
And yours was, say it again.
Using your lack of knowledge. It's the flip side of that. Where you're saying the prototypical would be me not knowing, but trying to pretend that I do. And what I'm saying is, you don't know. Maybe I don't know.
And you're going to exploit it.
Yeah.
So I would consider that a critical thinking and identification of the weakness in my argument is what you're doing, so that you can then seek to exploit to persuade, right?
Yeah.
So you're examining the weakness in my argument, and it might be identifying the areas you think I don't know what I'm talking about.
Right. Or just testing one thing that you weren't positive or weren't sure, or where your argument was weak, or whatever. Or like this is like a fun thing to do with religion, and I could do this with a believer or an atheist. It's to say absolutely that God is real or God is not real. I can poke holes in either side of that, because ultimately you're talking about faith, and you can't prove scientifically, in my belief at least, that you can't prove any of it. That's what faith is. And so it's fun. It's just fun to me to poke holes in people's stories and to reveal to them this is not fact.
Is it also fun to take an idea and argue both sides of it in your head?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you said right now,
Exactly.
either way, I believe in God, I don't believe in God, I'm fully prepared for both fights.
So you would have
Because it's fun.
You would have been a superstar on the speech and debate team, by the way, because that's literally the job. The job is...
Can I go back to high school and do that now?
No, but you know what? We can have an EPP speech and debate club. I'm here for it. I'm ready.
We could have the Ambassador Olympics.
Yes, we should.
And that would be good grief.
Okay, I think that should be at the next picnic.
You want at the next picnic, instead of us getting up there and talking lovey-dovey stuff, you want us to argue?
No, I want the lovey-dovey stuff because I'm here for that.
Okay.
And by the way, it was all very beautiful. I need that. But the speech and debate, by the way, is not arguing in my book.
Okay.
It is mental gymnastics, mental agility. It's mental Olympics.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Plus,
are you going to facilitate?
Yes.
What's the word? What's the judge called? A facilitator, mediator? What would you, if you're the person running the show there?
Yeah, I will do that.
You'll come up with a title
I think we're going to do that.
Okay.
And I don't
think
that speech and debate, in my opinion, is arguing for argument's sake. I think it's not only a persuasive art, but it's hearing each other, because the only way you can win that is by hearing the other person, truly listening to it, metabolizing it, taking it in, and then giving a counterpoint.
And then using it against them.
Well, in Clay's, to speak to Clay's definition of bullshit, exactly. But yeah, I mean, to take in what they say and to really hear them. You can't debate somebody properly if you haven't listened to them.
I love that sentence. And I swear I will put that on a t-shirt too. You can't properly debate someone unless you hear them.
That's right.
I love that.
Now you've got 2 t-shirts to make.
I have so many t-shirts. You have no idea. Let me go through the list of t-shirts, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're over an hour, by the way. It probably doesn't feel like it, but So there's EPP. Prison is our middle name.
That's right.
There's EPP, hippie bullshit. That's from a...
What?
Yeah, that's... No, hippie shit. Not just hippie shit. That's from the last episode. You'll listen to it on the flight home.
Okay.
It's episode 7.
Okay.
Phil said a funny thing, and that's the new shirt. There's so many. There's every time I think, oh, that's cute, that'd be a t-shirt, and I just say it. So now there you go. We have a new t-shirt. That's the goal every episode. It's really the whole point of the podcast is a marketing ploy to find t-shirts and merch. It's really all it's about.
Are you going to monetize this merch for charity?
We're going to have a t-shirt with ostriches and penguins, and then it's going to say EPP, and then on the back it's just going to say birds. Nobody will know what the hell it means. and they'll just have to figure out, and then we'll have one that says foveal glint. Like we're
Oh, Clay, it's been so good talking to you.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I have a question, and then I have an invitation, and and I think you half-assed already answered the question. How's this been? I told you 15 or 20 minutes, and we're an hour deep. How has it been for you?
Well, we talked about things that are really important to me, people I care about. I hope I've done them justice. That's the thing. When you asked me to do this, I guess my first experience of it was, what? Really? Why are you asking me to talk on your podcast?
Well, you're a rock star, by the way, to the ambassadors and to a lot of the people who know you. So to us, it's like a no-brainer, and everybody I mentioned to is like, obviously, yes, definitely, Robin included. Take her up to, yeah.
That's so sweet.
So it's such a no-brainer.
Well, I would not have known that. So thank you. I'm going to take that compliment in and put it deep in my heart. So I really do appreciate that, and thank you. It does feel good to be seen. And I didn't know I'd achieved rock star status, so that's very exciting. So my first thought was, really? What? You're asking me to be on a podcast? And I just heard how great your podcast is literally right before that. And so I feel like it's like I'm the only one that hasn't seen Friends or something. Yeah. So now I got to listen to your podcast I can't wait to hear all the episodes. So I felt honored by your request. I really did. And how has it been for me? The thing I was nervous about, because I told you now that you've asked me, I'm nervous. Beyond the personal butterflies, you don't want to, I don't want to not do justice to something so important. And I care so much about it that I don't want to trivialize. I don't want to sensationalize. And I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the people that people sometimes don't think are people. And I want to remember both their victims, for them, with them, which honors the victims and their struggles. But I want to also honor the people that sometimes people don't even think of as people. And I just didn't want to mess up.
I am comfortable saying that you did not mess up.
I'm glad.
And thank you again. There's two things that I don't do. There's a lot of things I don't do. Two things I don't do with the podcast. I don't introduce people, and I don't take the last word. So I want to give you the last word. I'm going to shut up and just give you all the time. Anything that's on your mind that we didn't get to, anything you'd like to share, say, or not say, whatever. There's no time limit. It's all yours, and I'll just sit here and listen.
I feel great gratitude. I feel great gratitude for living the life that I live. I feel very blessed to know all of you and to be part of everything we're all doing in the world. And I just want more of this for everyone. And it sounds trite as I say it, but if people could feel what I feel, they'd know that we just need more of this in the world. More honest conversations, more listening to each other, more appreciating each other's divine gifts, and mirroring it back to each other.
Thanks to the generosity of a donor just like you, on Giving Tuesday, EPP is doubling the impact of every donation, dollar for dollar, up to $100,000. Funds will support EPP's ability to expand our programming, including piloting our 8-module curriculum with those experiencing incarceration at facilities and in regions that are new to us. For more information and to make a gift, check us out online at EnneagramPrisonProject.org.